Nathan Buckley, the Collingwood champion, is alongside of me. And let's launch in as we do at this time each and every Monday morning with the buck stops here. It's for Tyre Power, tipping winners home or away on Toyo tyres. Bucks, over to you.
Thanks, Kane. Yeah, I'm going to start with the Ward versus Lachie Neale tackle and the fact that Callum Ward has been offered a one-match ban, which is consistent with what we've seen throughout the season to date. But for me, it's time to stop suspending players for an action that actually doesn't result in an injury. There's been a lot of commentary about it. It's like umpire contact, like hands in the back. There's been an adverse and over-the-top reaction to it, and it'll balance up soon enough. But it's definitely something that I reckon that we need to look at. Lachie Neale is not an inexperienced player. He's been in these skirmishes more often than anyone else. He allowed his body weight to rise, which makes it easier for him to go down. He actually allowed his legs to come together. And I wish that we could still put players up for their evidence, because if you asked him, did you contribute to going down, I'm sure that he would say yes. If there's a Nathan Broad or a Tom Green type action that causes concussion and injury, well, then we should hit them hard the way that they have been hit hard. But if it's not causing head trauma, I don't think that we should be suspending players.
To discuss this, so the Cozzy Pickett one, I know it's a different report altogether. That was for a bump.
Yeah, they're bumps. Yeah, I'm talking specifically about the tackle.
So you're specifically talking about sling tackle. So any sling tackle that doesn't result in an injury is fine.
Well, a sling. We saw if we're going to go and have a look at tackles, have a look at Connor Nash's tackle on Soligo. That's not a sling tackle. That's just a hard shoulder tackle. When a player gets concussed from that, are we going to start suspending Connor Nash for that tackle? I just think we have to consider we can abide by some head contact. Like Mitch Duncan was seen as not being able to have any other option. It was a football move, and I agree with that because Fox contributed to that, but that was contact directly to the head with the shoulder. Liberatore led with his head and was actually concussed and will miss this week when he went low against Andrew Brayshaw, and we abide by that. So it's not as if we don't abide by head contact in other parts of the game. But right now, it's this particular incidence that is being focused on. And like dissent, we're seeing examples that are being missed. But yet we are seeing players that are missing out on weeks, opportunities to play the game, and not that the Brownlow's a big one, but we could get a situation where a player potentially polls more votes than anyone else and misses out on that award because of an incident like this.
100% that has to change. We're reporting players for much minor incidents than we ever have in the past, yet players are going to miss the Brownlow. Zach Merritt is a great example about that. Right, Bucks doesn't think Callum Ward should have been suspended for that. Your thoughts? 0433 98 11 16 is the Timber text. What is point number 2?
Second one is the Swans, and we heard Chris Fagan talk about giving his players a mulligan in round 1. I reckon the players are going to have to give the Swans coaching staff a mulligan for the game on the weekend. The Swans had one arm tied behind their back with their key defensive stocks, and they were looking for innovative ways to handle Hawkins and Cameron. And the way they decided to do it was to put an extra number behind the ball. The two things that did was it gave Geelong an advantage running off their halfback line and took Mills out of the middle, one of their better midfielders. And the second one was it actually made it hard for them to get their ball in their front half directly. I think it showed a lack of faith in their midfield and forward setup to be able to go and do damage against the Cats team. And I think that is something that was flawed. I think the Swans coaching staff and John Longmire will put their hand up in front of the players and say that we didn't get that right. We didn't give you the best chance to win. And I reckon that'll be it'll actually be a really important part of the Swans coming together. And I've got no doubt that I don't know how it runs internally there, but I'm pretty sure that they'll be able to continue with this just as a
Does
blip.
that give the players a cop out though? Like, because
Potentially, but I think this is there's no doubt that the players could have been better, but there was still some running and dare in what they were trying to do. It was quite an open game at times, with both sides trying to run and carry through the middle. Geelong were cherry ripe for this game. I thought it was always going to be a hard one for Sydney to win. I think Geelong are coming from a little way back. To see Paddy Dangerfield running around, the intent that he showed this game compared to round one, I think he's learning about leadership and captaincy as he goes along, which is I think is it's not a trait unique to Geelong, but I think we were talking about Chris Scott, and I just think they'd continue to take opportunities to be tested and to be challenged and to improve, and that's all credit to them. The third one for me is you need to have everyone needs a forward 50 stoppage bull or beast to take forward 50 ball ups or throw-ins. It's a real opportunity in the game, and Tom Hawkins has probably led the way. When you get forward 50 stoppages, you're 150 metres from the opposition goal and you're 20 or 30 from your own, and it's a free hit. So you get a Hawkins, Taylor Walker did it and got a free kick, and Dixon's done it, Tom Lynch has done it. But if you don't have that big beast that is prepared to bend the rules and potentially give a free kick away, because it puts the opposition player under so much pressure, and sometimes you might have a makeshift ruckman in there, or a second ruckman who has to come up against this player who finds himself in this circumstance more often than not. And there's nothing to lose and everything to gain, and it really is. It's a bit of a free hit for that player going into that contest.
It's unbelievable. The Taylor Walker one yesterday. I mean, they lose by 3 points, Hawthorn. One of those goals comes from a free kick from Taylor Walker in the right. I reckon his kick, I wonder if Champion Data have got it, but 50 goals in the last 3 years from ruck contests, either direct free kicks or the follow-up where he's got the ground ball and snapped it left or right. As Mickey Barlow and Sam said in the commentary, you know exactly what is going to happen, but teams cannot stop it. And I look at Harry Mackay from Carlton. Why isn't he doing this?
Well, you need to have the attributes.
He's got the size.
He has got the size.
The attitude.
No, and that is, you can have the talent without the work rate. You can have, that's why we should celebrate the very best players in this caper, because you need to have all the attributes going for you. And maybe Harry Mackay needs to develop that in his game, but I think that's picking out one guy, but every team needs that guy.
All right.
The last two are going to be dedicated to the St Kilda Carlton match, and I want to start with the positive, and that is St Kilda. Being hard to beat is a pretty good way to win games of footy. Ross was spot on. Their turnover game is in great shape. At the end of this round, they've given up just 25 goals from turnover for the first 6 rounds. There'll be 10 teams that will have given up more than 40 on turnover. They've kicked over 50 goals on turnover themselves, and only the Lions and Geelong have matched that. Potentially Melbourne and Essendon and go past 50 goals. So there'll be one of 5 teams that's kicked over 50 goals from turnover, which we got to remember. Last year the St Kilda team were number 3 in defence and number 4 in attack at this time of the year. They were 5-1 last year at the same time, but you talk to all the St Kilda people, it feels different. By the end of Tuesday, they will have had 100 less points scored against them than any other team in the competition. 100 out of they're at 357, and no one will be within 100 points of them. So defensively, what Ross has built in a very short space of time has taken elements of a team that had played really well for the first half of last year, and he's provided a greater structure, and it seems like a greater spine to what they do. The proof is yet to be seen, because they've been in this position before last year, but any wise judge would not back against Ross to continue to improve this side, and they're doing amazing things, and their forward line, Membry comes back in, King potentially comes back in. They're going to be even better. Oof. Yeah, well, Butler, Gresham, Higgins, they were up and about this time last year. But they've got it, and they're doing it this year without the spine. Like they had Caminiti and Cordy instead of Membry and King. So and Owens has been a revelation as well. And Filippo's, Owens and Filippo were not part of the mix last year, but they should be part of a really dangerous front 6 and 7. But what St Kilda are building is real.
So that was the good Bucks. The opposition were the bad. What did you notice from the Blues?
Yeah, I'm expecting that we'll get quite a few calls from Carlton people this morning. The biggest difference in Carlton this year and to last year is expectation. Their turnover game is nearly identical. They're scoring a little less from stoppage, but defensively they're a little more solid. They're not handling their lack of some of their personnel losses as they did last year. But there's no doubt that the Wolves are at the door with Carlton this year. Versus Ross, it's real easy to be specific when you've won a game of footy. I think some coaches get into press conferences and they don't want to be specific about what didn't work for them, but that's probably exactly when you need to be, because I think Vossi was vague there deliberately, but I think
vague because he doesn't know, or vague because he knows but he doesn't want to share.
No, I think he's got the coaching. He and the coaching group would have some specific areas, but he didn't. He talked about our forward connection generally, but he'd know exactly what it is. Whether it's the speed of the last kick, or whether they need to possess the ball a little bit more through attacking mid, or whether they're getting a good enough contest when it goes inside. He'd know specifics on that, but I think sometimes coaches, I know I've been in this position, you don't want to give away the specifics because you might feel like you're welcoming more specific criticism. But I think what you do when you stay vague is it actually invites all manner of specific criticism rather than being really when you go general. So that's an observation. Look, they're missing Saad, Doherty and Williams off the back. Walsh coming back in has been great for their midfield numbers, but it hasn't had the impact in the turnover game that we thought. But there's not a lot. There's not a lot of difference in their game. The big difference is probably their stoppage scoring has come off a little bit, but there's still a work in progress. But the big change is expectation, and now everyone expects that they were just going to play finals. I still don't think that is a likelihood. I think there'll be teams that'll just be better than them, and they've got a bit of work to do to earn that right to play finals, and it's all in front of them.
Each and every Monday morning we go through all of the 9 games. On this occasion it is 7, and ask each other what the result or who the result says more about. Bucks, it was a pretty strong performance from the Western Bulldogs on Friday night against Fremantle. Who does it say more about, the Dockers or the Bulldogs?
I'm actually going to go with the Dockers. I think to be beaten that significantly on their own dung heap is a real. There's been red flags already for them, but I think Justin Longmuir and his coaches have got a bit of sorting out to do. They have been dour. They're not defending as well. To give up 118 points and not to have the offense going back the other way is a real concern. So I think the Dockers and the Dogs were excellent, mind you. I think Ugle-Hagen's coming on really well, showing great hands, yes. Beautiful kick and user. And Tim English is just continuing to put an All-Australian ruck year together. So they're really good signs for the Dogs.
Number 1 rated player in the game at the moment, according to Champion Data, Tim English.
Oh, look, he's just he's becoming the complete player, let alone ruckman. I mean, he's very good on the ground. He's very good in the air. He gets forward. He gets back. He's identifying the key moments. So the Dogs fans should be very happy with how they're tracking. And the Dockers have got some work to do. Port Adelaide and West Coast. Who does it say more about?
I think just West Coast irrelevance, really, in the whole scheme of things, and the opportunity that teams have that now play West Coast once or twice to do some real damage. Now, Port Adelaide weren't perfect by any stretch. In fact, it wasn't that of an impressive performance, and they've got some issues, particularly with their key position players and in the ruck. But the Eagles, where to now for their list? What happens for Adam Simpson, who says that the club has made the decision to back him in as the rebuilding coach? but it's already been 3 years down the bottom. It's going to take another probably 5 to get back up the top. So, yeah, it'll be hard for him to stay there for the majority of this rebuild, and some of their list decisions that they've made and backing in these veterans are looking pretty ordinary.
I don't agree. I think they knew, or in terms of Adam Simpson's tenure, I think they've made the decision that he's the one to redevelop and be there through this next period of time. I think they're as aligned as any club in this situation could be.
They got there late though. They got there so late to the party. So my point is, how often does a coach go right up and win a premiership, go right back down, and then come back all the way up? And it's already been 3 years of...
No, not very often at all. No. But I think that maybe it's an acknowledgement from internally that it wasn't coaching. It's probably list management and all of the injury and all of the and conditioning
but we know
medical.
Where the buck stops, to use your 7 o'clock segment. The buck stops with the coach, and that has always been the way in this game. And yep, there'll be changes to high performance. There may have already been that. CEO has been questioned, but at the end of the day, does Adam Simpson get through this period? I would be surprised if he does. The Brisbane Lions got it done by 21 points against the Giants, who didn't disgrace themselves. Bucks, who does the result say more about?
Yeah, well, I think Brisbane. GWS have been plucky with the way they've gone about it. Brisbane have scored heavily over the last month or so. They've really beaten up on some defences that they've been able to get on top of. They've really answered, Danaher's answered the queries that have come his way effectively. There are going to be tougher challenges, but Charlie Cameron looks like he's up and about. They're winning more contests through the middle of the field, which gives them a chance for him to get out back. And when you get him in space, either one-on-one or in a low outnumber situation, he looks as damaging as ever. And some of his finishing was just top shelf. So that was.
Did he mean that goal?
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely, unequivocally meant that goal.
Absolutely, he did.
No, that was a fluke.
What do you think he was trying to do?
Well, I don't know. He's trying to jump in the air, not to kick a goal. If you're going to
absolutely,
if you're going to kick a goal, you don't jump in the air. You pick the ball up.
He was deliberately hitting that on the outside of his boot to deflect it towards the goals. Now, are you serious?
No, I'm 100% serious. That was a fluke.
All right, let's get on your Twitter, get on your blue tick and run a poll, and we'll see how many people actually thought that was deliberate and how many people didn't.
No, I understand I'm in the minority, but that's because they will side with
You're comfortable there, though.
I am, and they will side with the super skilled player who does freakish things. On that occasion,
he got a favourable bounce, but there is no doubt at all that that's where he was heading for. Geelong, Sydney. Who does it say more about?
Geelong, for me, they're back. I wanted to see the hunger, which hadn't been there. I think they were pretty comfortable with the premiership that they've won and working their way into the season, but that was back. Desperation, tackling, get the ball back off the opposition, and method as well. It was back to that method that we've seen in their ball movement, and some of their kicking is as good as they've kicked the ball this year, and good players starting to get back into really good form, including Patrick Dangerfield and Tom Hawkins. The Crows got it done by 3 points after trailing by 9 with 3 minutes to go. It is the second heartbreaking loss in a row for Hawthorn. They lost by 2 points last week. They lose by 3 points this week. Bucks, who does the result say more about?
Oh, look, I like both of the teams in this, but I have to give credit to the Crows. I think they've shown some top end, brilliant performances, and the win against Carlton was that. But I think this was a real winning ugly. They haven't won often in Tasmania. They haven't played often down there, but Hawthorn are a little more comfortable down that way. But I thought Adelaide winning ugly was real growth for them, and further validation for the steps that they've taken to improve as a footy side.
The importance of the win shouldn't be underestimated for the Crows, because they play Collingwood, Geelong, St Kilda, the Western Bulldogs and Brisbane in the next 5. If they had have dropped that and gone to 3-3 with the next 5 weeks that they've got, it could have had huge ramifications. So these are the sliding doors moments in your season.
Yeah, well, you need to take the opportunities when they're there. Having said that, I thought Hawthorn's grunt was fantastic. I think the way that they were able to to close the game down to match Adelaide in some of their pressure efforts, I thought was first class. So Hawthorn weren't embarrassed, and they're adding sort of some of that open field ball use and run and gun. If they can add the grit and competitive elements to their game, they're not winning a lot of games of footy at the moment, but the elements are there, and they could well all come together for the Hawthorn supporters sooner than later. We've gone through Carlton, St Kilda extensively, but a 22-point win, surely. Where do you go with this? Who does it say more about?
I'm going with the Blues. I'm disappointed in Carlton, and the expectation piece is interesting. And your point that they're essentially where they were last year, but that's not going to fly for me, because you need to be improving. You make a couple of changes around the edges in the off season, and Akers comes in, and you would hope that you get some more improvement from the younger player. It hasn't been there, so they've got issues with personnel, I think, and have they invested in the right areas? It's been midfield, but the mix looks off to me, and they're just not maximising two powerful players in the prime of their careers for whatever reason. And is it coaching? Is it personnel? It's a mixture of both. But that result said more about Carlton, and to kick 60 points under the roof with two massive key forwards in the prime of their career is a terrible result. The final game of the round was Gold Coast taking on North Melbourne, and it was Gold Coast by 43 bucks.
Well, quite a nondescript game, isn't it? It's pretty hard to pick one out of here, but I'd say Gold Coast. It shows where they're at. I mean, they're not a bottom four side. They've been a middle of the table side for the majority of their tenure in the league after sort of coming in early. I mean, Jared Witts is a massive plus whenever he's in the side. I think he's a great team man, and he has others stand tall around him. I thought Charles' game was really strong. The Ainsworth, when he gets his chances in the front half, Anderson, Tuke Miller's going to be an interesting one, but it was good for them to be able to do what they did against a lowly ranked opponent. You're not going to get them much easier than that, but
good to see
still got
Ben
a bit
King
of work
back.
to do.
Ben King back as well, kick 5
and
in
kick
the
straight.
first half. Yeah, there was some disappointment out of North Melbourne, which we have already spoken about. Bucks, if there's a technical flaw in a player that you're coaching, and I've noticed a couple, Luke Jackson to me has a technical flaw that he jumps off 2 feet. So his timing in the marking contest, you'll see it. He's like a volleyballer going up for a block, more so than a footballer running and jumping off 1 foot and then driving your knee to mark the footy, and his timing is off. Then we look at Harry Mackay yesterday, and goal kicking is a little bit different, I know, but I see Tim Taranto kick a drop punt. There's a technical flaw in how he kicks a drop punt. So the question is, do you address that as a coach when they're experienced players now, well into their careers, or do you let them sort of go about it their own way and sort it out for themselves?
No, absolutely you do, because you've got to continue to strive for improvement in everything that you do. So Luke Jackson jumping off 2 feet and not being effective, then it needs to change. Now, if he jumps off 2 feet and it is effective, Tim Membry is a bit of a 2-foot jumper. When he gets under the ball, he finds a way to get those hops, and he's been a player that surprised me with that exact
Technique,
exact talent, I suppose, or technique. So if it's ineffective, you've got to remedy it, and it might actually be where you use it or how you use it, where it fits into your team's plan, where you put that player, because you're not always going to be able to change it, but there needs to be a willingness to actually improve it. And you're not just going to accept. I think that he goes to the back of aerial contests far too often. I think he can get to the front of his guy and get to the higher point more often. Luke Jackson. So I think that we're seeing that there's so much more growth and opportunity for him, and so there should be, because he's still a young player who's developing, and there's been a fair bit invested into him, and there's a lot of expectation. But he's got some goods, and he's going to become a better player. as he goes along, and that's going to be part of it. Is Jack Sinclair underrated?
Is he underrated? Probably.
He's an All-Australian player, isn't he?
Yeah, can you be underrated if you're All-Australian? Yeah, reigning All-Australian. I don't know if you can. Like, that's elite. Like, you're in the top.
Is he St Kilda's best player?
Yep.
I think Wilkie's got claims to that.
And King, King not yet, but will
Max
be.
King when he's up and about.
In time. But I think that's Jack still would probably like that. But I think in terms of Clark, like and the coaching, so this is the point on Carlton being so dour, and there's a sameness through the midfield. So Ross has gone, okay, well, let's get him inside. Let's give us something a different look with what he did there. So I mean, that's
he played inside for Brett Ratton late last year when they needed some go in the midfield and some break lines and ball winning and clean use. I just think he's a brilliant player. He just keeps going from strength to strength.
That's a good question without notice. We touched on Adam Kingsley last week losing his mind in the coach's box. So I don't know if you noticed. There was a change, and full credit to whoever it was at the Giants that put him inside and said, "You just can't keep. You want a long coaching career. You can't keep banging the desk if players miss set shots." You see him with the stress ball in the coach's box.
Yes, I did see that vision, and maybe Adam Kingsley decided to do it himself.
Could have been,
but in the end, and It might have been there last week, but it got thrown up against the wall about 10 minutes before the camera came to him. It's an emotional game, and he will learn as he goes along. And it's as much in the box. It's about being in an environment where you can accept the information to make better decisions. That's all it is. And you can't make great decisions when you're on tilt. I've been there.
Is the game better, Bucks, for having 4 umpires? Question without
not. There's no discernible difference to me. I don't see. I think I've said it often, and I'll keep banging on about it. Umpiring is one of the toughest gigs that you can ever find. I don't. It's like blindfolding, tying a hand behind the back, and then asking someone to find their way out of a room. I don't know. It's just umpiring is the least. There's no gratitude to it. There's no upside. There's no winning. I admire everything that they do. They're on a hiding to nothing. And I would not be a party of criticising anything that happens there, but it's a bloody tough gig.
We did this thing in the fire.
How would we go in green?
We did this thing in the fire brigade for the training leading up to when you want to get in, and I'm hesitant to say this because I'll get teased about it. I don't care, but they put blindfolds on you, and you go through a building, and you've got to get yourself in and out of the building while rescuing big, heavy dummies like body weights.
Yeah.
So for you to say that it's like
cook
that.
You back there.
And it was,
as soon as we mention umpiring and blindfolds, there's so many cracks that people will have there. But
it's such a hard job. I put a clip up on Twitter about the James Sicily free kick yesterday. Now, I just wouldn't pay that free kick because it's very soft, right? But the AFL would say we want that free kick paid. Yeah, they will defend that and say that is a free kick every day of the week. So James Sicily is just a little push to Fogarty's shoulder. Whether their feet get tangled or whether Darcy Fogarty takes a dive is up for debate. But that is a free kick off the ball. That is a goal. Hawthorn lose by 3 points. If you don't have 4 umpires, that's not paid.
You don't reckon?
No. Do you think that's a free kick?
That's a leap. It might have been paid with 3. You don't know.
Maybe. But the fourth umpire is you're going to have more sets of eyes on incidents like that, and they're more prone to pay them. But I just don't want to see free kicks like that in the game. Now,
but we go to one decision that impacts the game, especially when it's less than a goal. But the reality is, there's so many things that a side gets right or wrong, or opportunities they take or don't take against your opposition that can impact on a result. We're projecting forward a little bit, but talking about Richmond. But given their injuries, given their youth, the potential expectation, I suppose, how this season finished last year. What's a pass mark for Richmond in 2023?
Well, I would have thought top 4, wouldn't you? Like
Really?
Well, at the start of it,
Right now, what's a pass mark right now?
Make the 8. But I don't have any confidence that
that's a pass mark. Okay.
What's a pass mark for you?
I think you're right. I think it's going to be really tough for them to make finals. They'll get players back and they'll play better football, but whether it's right for them to finish sort of between, say, 6th to 10th. They've got a lot of young players and in key positions too. I mean, they're key defenders. Bolter's not an experienced key defender, and he's up and down with his performances. To play young as a key defender, and then to have Ryan at the other end, like you don't often have that sort of youth in your key stocks, let alone in running positions, in flanker positions. So I just think, I think then the expectations need to be adjusted for Richmond. I'd be surprised if they made finals.
I'm with you.